focus on reports that have been coming in about Houstonians experiencing price gouging on essential items like gas, food, and hotel accommodations. Harris County Attorney Christian Menefee joins me now to explain what exactly is going on and how you can navigate these trying times. Kristen, good morning. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to chat with us. As we get into this conversation, I want to start by defining price gouging and talk to us about when this is illegal.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Yes.
It's illegal when there's a declared disaster for individuals, for companies to raise prices on necessities excessively. So what we're talking about here is if you see, for example, we've seen gas being marked up an additional $1 per gallon from $3 some odd to $4. We've seen water bottle packages being marked up from $18 to $50, right? We've seen food prices increase as well as lodging prices increase. If you go to buy a product that you have purchased before and you notice that it is more expensive than it traditionally is, we want you to report it. And it's important that you do that because no company should be taking advantage of our communities as we're responding from a hurricane and people are without power. So we're doing everything we can in the Harris County Attorney's Office, but if you see something, we need you to say something.
And of course, that declaration must come from either the governor or the president.
Or the county judge. Anytime there's a declared disaster, there are many instances where there's a disaster that only impacts one county, and so in that instance, the county judge can make that disaster declaration. But one thing about price gouging that we see is across the aisle, this is not a political issue at all. Both Republicans, Democrats, and also independents alike, everybody agrees that these companies shouldn't be taking advantage of people. So this is one area where there is unity to go after violators, and that's exactly what my office intends to do.
I know, Christian, you mentioned that if people are impacted by this, they're to report it. How can you navigate it? How can people best get themselves around it in those moments, say at the fuel pump?
Yeah, in those moments, what you should do is take a picture, because we're certainly going to need that information as we investigate it. But it's important to call it out, right? If you notice that prices are more higher than they normally are, it's fine to speak with an employee. It's fine to speak with a manager. What we typically see is that companies aren't going to change their prices just because one customer says something. But when we come in with the power of government behind us and we send our investigators to that location and we sit down with the owner and say, we see what you're doing, you need to stop, we tend to have almost 100% voluntary compliance because these companies tend to be ashamed of their behavior, frankly. So that's why we need folks to report the name of the business, take a picture of the product, including how much is being charged, so that we can take swift action to stop gouging in our communities.
Christian, before I let you go, I want to ask you, I heard from one viewer this morning telling me their power was restored. They live in 3rd Ward. Their power was restored yesterday, only for it to go out last night. It is still off. Their power has not been restored. What is your message this morning to residents throughout the county still struggling when it comes to not having electricity 10 days after Beryl made landfall here in the Houston area?
I know that this has been incredibly frustrating, to say the least. We've seen not just people languish in their homes without power in this heat, but also folks have passed away. It's been an incredibly sad thing to see and a great tragedy. What we do know is that multiple levels of government will be looking at the response and how we can change systems to ensure that this doesn't happen again. I know that I've seen both the governor call for and the lieutenant governor call for an investigation into Centerpoint Energy. I've seen the mayor of Houston say that he's going to hold Centerpoint accountable. I think what folks out there in the Harris County community can count on is that multiple levels of government will be working together to ensure that we are best positioned to protect communities from things like this. And one thing I know is so important is just information. People need to know. I know, for one, I lost power for almost a week, and I had no clue that this was potentially going to be that long without power. So the more that we can let our communities know, the earlier, the more that folks can plan on that. So my response is, we hear you, we see you, and in government, we're going to be doing everything we can to hold companies accountable and to best prepare us so that this doesn't happen again.
Okay, Christian Menefee, thank you so much for your time this morning. We do appreciate it.